To this conversation now, there is growing criticism over Sassa's new ID verification system for social relief of distress grant recipients. There are threats of legal action by various groups who claim the biometric verification measure is unfair to those without access to the internet. Sassa spokesperson is Paseka Letsatsi. He joins us now to tell us the necessities for these biometric upgrades. Mr. Letsatsi, good evening to you. What necessitated this move by Sassa?
Good evening, Oli, and thanks for having me. I think basically what the organization came to the conclusion after experiencing the number of fraud taking place. In this instance, you will have a beneficiary who's getting the 370. However, there are people which we have experienced in the past few weeks who simply change the number from a beneficiary to a number that they would want to use to divert the funds from the particular beneficiary, or they would change the banking details. Remember, we have been giving the clients the leeway if they want to change the banking details, if they want to change their phone number. But the fraudsters have identified the loophole, and basically what they've been doing is to divert the money so that they can defraud the beneficiaries. Hence, we arrive at this conclusion.
All right. So the basic, what you are trying to guard against here is corruption, essentially. Let's then talk about those who are directly affected by this. And I want us, before we continue with the conversation, to just listen to one of the organizations that are assisting some of the beneficiaries. Let's just take a listen for a moment.
You have to request the biometric link from Sassa. You will receive 2 SMSs. The one will tell you how to do the biometric link, and the other one will have the link. But this is also a problem because some beneficiaries do not have access to a smartphone, and they do not have access to a camera as well. And then there's also the issue of the smart card ID. If you do have the green ID book, your grant will stay suspended until you apply for smart card ID. And that is actually very heartbreaking, the fact that they don't consider the beneficiaries. I've been trying the whole week to just ask them to just at least get it pushed back and just pay the beneficiaries and give them the time frame so they can do this biometric link, because we are really not against it.
Mr. Letsatsi, are you amenable to requests that say, while people try to get themselves authenticated through this biometric system you are upgrading, why don't you continue paying the grants? Because the people are suffering on the ground.
You know, not only, I'll say this in another language, which I think you may understand. What we are basically doing here, it's what they would say, you do it, you are in trouble. You don't do it, you are in trouble. If we suspend what we are doing now, it simply means the fraudsters are watching this interview now as we are speaking. If, for an example, we take a decision to suspend it now, tomorrow, as we wake up or as we finalize this particular conversation, they are going to start to do this particular thing. And what we may want to explain, Oli, it's not a blanket approach. It affects those particular individuals who want to change their banking details, who want to change their cell number. And what we would want to believe, or what we would want to encourage the beneficiaries to do, is that we understand people get robbed. We also understand that people lose their cell phones and so forth. All that we would want to engage the communities around is basically to ask them, if they lose their phone or their phone gets stolen, can't they do a SIM swap so that they maintain the same number? And secondly, we would want to understand basically why would suddenly so many people want to change their banking details. And when our fraud management unit went to investigate, they found out that 98 or if not 99% of these people who changed their account numbers or their cell numbers, it has got nothing to do with the fact that they lost their ID or they are tired with a particular bank, they want to go and open account in a different bank. Yeah. But it's because fraudsters are basically channeling money, which is basically fraud. So we do understand, but we are not going to inconvenience the beneficiaries in this instance. Hence, one, there are two things which we want to do, Todi. One, we are going to go an extra mile to do beneficiary education so that people understand, but we could not wait, Todi, and start the beneficiary education in 2 weeks. Fraudsters who are not going to wait for the train. The train will be gone, they will still continue to steal money. But we'll go to the communities and make them understand. But secondly, we want to cooperate with everybody. With the council, would want to also appeal to people who can help. We also want, at some point, we interacted with the National Development Agency to basically help us, especially in the case where people say, I don't have a smartphone, which we understand that not everybody has got access to a smartphone. But obviously, Tony, me and you know, if you try to cat fraud, something very difficult or complicated will come in. And once it comes in, there will be this particular complaint. We're trying to do a balancing act.
Yeah, and it's this last response that I think goes to the heart of what perhaps could help ameliorate the impact of this, particularly on the people who are already vulnerable. It is the communication, the timeless communication of these changes. How widely have these changes been communicated to the people that are affected?
What we have done, we did this thing through what we call a direct communication in terms of making sure that those particular people who are affected were able to communicate with them. But we do understand that we need to make sure that we roll it out, we reach as many people as possible. And I think in terms of our communication plan, we would want to go to the schools, we want to go to the churches, we want to engage with the councillors, which we are basically doing as we speak, but we want to make sure that we also have the community in business so that we're able to explain. And together with the communities, we can then be able to come up with a solution to this particular problem. However, the intention, I think we need to emphasize, we, after making a particular analysis of the process, we realize that 98 to 99% of people who say, I want to change my bank account, suddenly it grows. People want to change their banking details. Suddenly, people want to change their cell numbers because in this instance, they want to divert money and steal people's money. Because if we sit down, Oli, I'm sure you know, if we sit down and do nothing, we will be blamed that we are actually doing the same thing which we are trying to avoid, of making sure that beneficiaries get what is due to them and the money does not go down the drain to those who are trying to defraud the system.
Paseka Letsatsi, let me thank you very much for your time. Spokesperson at the South African Social Security Agency.